I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who needed to hire a private investigator. But here I am, middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, questions swirling in my head like a storm I can't outrun. "Hey babe," I whispered, not sure if she was still awake. "You up?" Laura mumbled something, barely audible, curled up with her back to me, hugging that extra pillow like it was her lifeline. "Can I ask you something?" I said quietly. "We've been together almost 25 years. How come now, all of a sudden, things are different in bed?" She stirred a little but didn't say much. "I mean, you've always gone along with it, sure, but it never felt like you were really into it. And then this past week? It's like you flipped a switch." Laura finally rolled over to face me, still clutching that pillow. Her blue eyes locked onto mine with a soft, teasing smile. "I didn't hear you complaining," she said playfully. I smiled back, because the truth is, she's still the woman I fell for all those years ago at a backyard barbecue. My best friend. My everything. "No complaints," I said, just surprised. "That thing you've done twice this week? You haven't done that since before we got married. What changed?" Laura sat up slowly, more awake now. "What's this really about, Dan?" I kept my voice calm. "I'm not angry. I just want to understand. For years, you've acted like that was something you hated. And now, out of nowhere, it's like you're enjoying it." Laura stood up and crossed her arms, looking down at me with irritation in her eyes. "If you're gonna accuse me of something, just say it." "I'm not accusing you, Laura," I said, still lying in bed. "I just want to know what brought on the change. Did you read something? Talk to one of your girlfriends? Or maybe, get a little practice?" That hit a nerve. Her cheeks flushed red, and I knew I'd pushed too far. But I could not help myself. "Hey, whatever's going on, I have to admit your game has definitely improved. Almost reminds me of a few of my college flings." That did it. She grabbed her pillow and stormed toward the door. "You don't have to wonder anymore," she snapped. "I'll never do it again." She stomped down the hall toward the guest bedroom, and I called after her, "I guess I'll find out everything in the morning." She froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "that the private investigator I hired about 6 weeks ago is finally done with his report. We're meeting first thing in the morning. And I've got a strong feeling your new techniques are going to show up in that file." Her jaw dropped. I shut and locked the bedroom door behind me. She knocked, cried, pleaded for over an hour. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling in the dark, tears soaking into my pillow. I never thought we'd come to this. I got up around 3 in the morning, wanting to avoid the usual awkward routine. Threw on my gym clothes, grabbed my bag, and slipped out the door before she could say a word. I hit the gym harder than usual, 2 straight hours of lifting and running just to clear my head. After a quick shower at the locker room, I changed into fresh clothes I had stashed in the car the day before. By 6, I was sitting in my favorite little diner just a couple blocks from the office. Ordered coffee and stared out the window, trying to hold myself together. When I finally turned my phone back on, it blew up with messages from Laura. Calls, texts, voicemails, nonstop. I ignored every one of them. Instead, I sent a quick message to my boss, asking if we could meet before work. She replied half an hour later. "See you at 7:30. Neela walked into the diner right on time. She spotted me in the corner booth and slid into the seat across from me. After ordering a coffee and a bagel to go, she looked me over and said, "Dan, you look like hell." "Yeah," I said, "I feel even worse." "Is this something about work?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nope. It's personal. I think Laura's cheating on me." Actually, she practically admitted it last night. Neela raised her eyebrows but stayed quiet. "I hired a private investigator a while back," I continued. "I'm meeting him this morning. I just needed you to know that I might not be around much for the next few days." She paused, then asked, "How can I help?" "Unless you've got a magic wand," I said with a weak smile, "there's not much anyone can do." I'll be checking in with the office here and there, but mostly I'll be laying low. I have the investigator today, lawyer tomorrow. Mila took a slow sip of her coffee. You sure you're not jumping the gun a little? Do you have actual proof? Not yet, I said. But last night, I baited her into an argument about intimacy. The moment I mentioned the investigator, the look on her face told me everything I needed to know. Mila gave me that look, part sympathy, part concern. Maybe you should talk to her, Dan. I will talk to her, I told Mila, just, not yet. She nodded, then asked gently, do you have a place to stay, or should I help you book a room somewhere? Before I could answer, she reached into that giant purse she always carries and started digging around. A moment later, she pulled out a small key ring and slid one of the keys across the table to me. That's to our cottage, she said. You've stayed there before. It's about a 35-minute drive from here. We will not be using it until the end of the month, so it is all yours for now. I stared at the key in my hand, grateful but a little embarrassed. Thanks, I said. Mila leaned back in the booth and looked me square in the eye. Can I offer you some advice? Sure, I said, even though I knew whatever she said was going to hurt a little. If things go the way you think they will, she said, your life's about to get a whole lot harder before it starts to get better. It'll feel like everything is crashing down. But one morning, you'll wake up, and you won't feel completely broken anymore. You'll still feel awful, but a little less than the day before. And that's when the healing starts. I looked at her closely. Sounds like you've lived it. She gave a sad little laugh. Yeah. My ex-husband and I split 12 years ago. I do not talk about it much because, honestly, I am still ashamed. I tore up my marriage, hurt my son, wrecked my family. Steve's parents still can't look at me, and my kids' friends used to hit on me just to get under my skin because they all knew. You don't have to tell me all this, I said softly. I know, she replied. But even with 2 years of therapy under my belt, I still do not have answers for what I did. Just more regret. We both let out a hollow chuckle. Then she dropped the real bomb. Steve found out about the affair because he tested positive for an STD. That's how it all came out. I gave a disease to the man I loved and to my closest friend. I didn't know what to say. My heart sank. But she kept going. And then I panicked, she said, her voice low now. Tried to blame him for it. Claimed he gave it to me. But we both knew. Everyone knew. It was me. I was the one who stepped out. I finally asked, why did you do it? She stared down at her coffee for a while before answering. Because I could. Because I wanted to feel wanted again. Because I liked the thrill of keeping a secret. I loved that forbidden kind of passion, even if it was rough and wrong and dangerous. My job had me traveling a lot, like you. Once or twice a year, I'd meet someone, and well, one thing would lead to another. She shook her head. It all seems so foolish now. We sat there in silence for a bit, just sipping our coffee. Then she looked at me and asked, have you ever cheated? I shook my head. No. Never felt the urge. I mean, I like to flirt, sure. It feels good knowing women still find me attractive. But I've never seriously considered being with anyone but Laura. That just isn't who I am. Even if things got boring, she asked. Yeah, I said. Even then. Laura was never into experimenting much. But still, an average night with her always meant more to me than any wild fling I ever had in college. Mila nodded slowly. So what made you start suspecting her? We've always had a pretty solid sex life. Even after all these years, 2 or 3 times a week was the norm. But recently, Laura's changed. She's been bolder. More adventurous. Too much, too fast. It did not feel natural. Something inside me started nagging. I paused, then added, that's when I hired the private investigator. Been waiting weeks for the report. Should be getting the answers any minute now. She might try to call the office, Mila said. What do you want me to say if she does? Just tell her I'm taking some time off. I won't be back until next week. She picked up the check, grabbed her bagel, and pulled me in for a tight hug before she left. Stay strong, okay? If you need anything at all, you call me. That meant more than she probably knew. Later that day, I got in touch with our daughters Emma and Brooke. I asked them to meet me on campus but told them not to answer any calls or texts from their mother until we had a chance to talk. Emma was born just 9 months before Brooke but skipped a grade, so they had gone through school together. Both were in their 3rd year at the University of Pennsylvania. Emma was following in my footsteps, studying electrical engineering. Brooke was chasing a medical career and majoring in chemistry. When I finally saw them, I hugged Emma tight and kissed Brooke on the cheek, guiding them to a quiet corner in the student union building. Emma looked me over and said, "Dad, you look awful." I had to chuckle, those were the same words my boss said that morning. "Yeah," I replied, "I've heard that already today." Brooke cut in, eyes wide. "Just tell us what's going on, Dad." "Mom's been blowing up our phones." I took a deep breath. I had rehearsed this moment a dozen times. But when it came down to it, the words just wouldn't come out. Instead, the dam broke, and I started crying hard. Years of buried emotion just spilled out. Both girls rushed to my side and wrapped their arms around me until I could get a grip. When I could finally speak, I said it as plainly as I could, "I hate to say this, but I'm going to file for divorce. Your mother's been having a long-term affair with a man she works with." Emma's face went pale. "Wait, are you sure?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said, wiping my eyes. "I'm sure. I've got evidence." Brooke sat down, already in tears. Emma blinked a few times, trying to process it. "I know you wouldn't lie, Dad," she said, "but can I see something?" "Anything?" I had picked out a photo earlier, one that wasn't as explicit as the others. I showed them an image of Laura kissing Ryan Simons, a guy from her real estate office, right on the front porch of a house they were showing. They stared at it in silence. "Dad," Emma began, but I stopped her gently. "I have a lot more than that: videos, emails, texts. But you do not need to see them. I saw enough for all of us." Brooke sobbed harder. "Are you really going to divorce her?" I nodded slowly. At this point, I do not see any other path forward. I know I was not a perfect husband or father. But I can't keep pretending everything is fine. They sat there holding on to me. And for the first time in a long time, I let them. I took a deep breath and looked my daughters in the eyes. "I've never claimed to be perfect," I said. "Lord knows I've made my share of mistakes. But I've always tried to be a good husband. A good dad. I've done everything I could for this family. And now I feel like I've got nothing left to give. Your mom, she wants something more. I just don't think I'm that more anymore." They sat there quietly, listening, soaking in every word. "I still love your mother," I admitted. "Just not the same way I did 6 weeks ago before I found out what she was hiding. But even more than that, I don't like her right now. I can't trust her. And the worst part? I don't think she respects me anymore." I paused and looked away for a second. "She's been mocking me behind my back. Dismissing me. Treating me like I'm nothing. And she doesn't even seem to care." Just then, Emma's phone lit up and started ringing. We all glanced at the screen. It was Laura. "Don't answer that," I said firmly. But Emma's face tightened with anger, and she picked it up anyway. "Mom," she said harshly, "we're busy trying to calm Dad down. He's devastated. Maybe if you need someone to talk to, you should call your boyfriend." Laura's voice came through the phone loud and panicked, but Emma didn't let her finish. She hung up, then turned off her phone. Brooke followed suit. I sighed. "I'm sorry you two are stuck in the middle of this. I know it's not fair. I know it's ugly. But no matter what happens between your mom and me, she's still your mother. And she loves you. They looked at me, conflicted. I'm not asking you to forgive her for what she's done, I said. And I'm not asking you to act like nothing happened. But I am asking you to show her respect. We all have to find a way to keep moving forward. She's still your mom, flawed and human, just like I'm your dad, flaws and all. After we said our goodbyes, I grabbed a quick meal and a cold craft beer at a roadside burger joint. I sat alone at the bar, trying to make sense of everything. When I finished, I drove out to my parents' place. I hardly ever show up without calling, so I took a few moments in the driveway to collect myself. That's when I noticed the front door swing open. Dad stepped outside, followed by Mom. They both stood there, watching me with concern. I finally got out of the car and walked toward them. Before I made it to the porch, Dad met me halfway and wrapped me in a bear hug. And that's when I broke down again. All that strength I had tried to hold together, it just crumbled in my dad's arms. I cried on his shoulder like I hadn't done since I was a kid. We figured something was wrong, he said softly. Laura's been blowing up our phones. We had a feeling you'd show up tonight. Once I settled down, I sat them down and explained everything: Laura's affair, the private investigator, the photos, all of it. Mom looked devastated. Do you think counseling might help? She asked, always the hopeful one. She's always loved Laura like her own daughter. Tears filled her eyes, and I shook my head. No, Mom. I'm not interested in therapy right now. I treated Laura like a queen. I treated our girls like they were my whole world. I didn't deserve to be treated like this. Mom's voice trembled. But you two had so many good years together. I sighed. Yeah, we did. But Laura blew all of that up. This wasn't a mistake. This was a full-blown affair. She and that guy, both married, both selfish. They knew what they were doing. Mom sat there quietly, clearly trying to find some sort of silver lining. But I could tell what I said next caught her off guard. Why would you want me to stay married to someone who lies to me? Who cheats on me? I know I've got my faults, but come on, I don't deserve that. Please, Mom said quietly. Don't call her names. At least not around me. I'm not trying to be cruel, I said. I just need to speak the truth. I gave her everything I had. It wasn't enough. Now I'm left with this mess, and she walks around like she did nothing wrong. Dad finally stepped in. Go easy on your mom, he said gently. This is hard on us too. But no matter what, we're behind you. Whatever you decide, we've got your back. After a quiet pause, he added, we do hope, if it's at all possible, that we can still stay in touch with Laura's side of the family. Things might never be the same, but I hope this doesn't tear everyone apart. Just as he finished speaking, Mom's phone buzzed. She checked it. It's Laura, she said, looking at me. I won't ignore her calls, Dan. And I won't lie to her. You don't have to, I replied. I'd never ask you to. She answered the call. Hi, Laura, yes, he's here. He came by about 10 minutes ago and told us everything. I think he's staying the night. Then she held the phone away and looked at me. She's coming over. I'm heading out, I said quickly. I'll call you tomorrow. Mom looked worried. Where are you going? Mila has a cottage out by Lake Hart, I said. She offered it to me. It's quiet. I need space right now. Dad spoke up again. You're going to have to talk to her eventually. I will, I said. But on my terms. Not hers. I'm not ready. What do you want us to tell her when she shows up? Mom asked. Just let her know there's no point in coming over tonight. Tell her I'm not ready to talk. And please, don't tell her where I'm staying. Mom nodded slowly, then started to cry. I walked over and hugged her tight. Dad stepped in too, and for a moment we just stood there, our little family holding each other together while everything else around us fell apart. That night, their quiet support meant more than words ever could. Next morning, I met with the divorce attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense guy that Mila recommended. That meeting made it all feel official. Afterward, I took a deep breath and drove straight to my in-laws' house. Laura's car wasn't in the driveway when I pulled up to her parents' place. I parked, stepped out, and headed for the front door, nerves already stretched thin. Jim Price, her dad, opened the door before I even knocked. His expression said it all. "It's bad, isn't it?" he asked. "Yeah, Jim," I said quietly. "It's about as bad as it gets." He stood there for a moment, blocking the doorway like he wasn't sure if he should let me in. "Was it you, or her?" he asked. "It was Laura," I said. "You got proof?" he asked bluntly. I nodded. Jim let out a sharp breath, muttered "dang," and turned back toward the kitchen without another word, leaving the door open for me to follow. Inside, Willow, Laura's mom, was already at the table, wringing her hands and watching me nervously. She motioned to the coffee maker. "There's fresh coffee," she said, her voice trembling. I poured myself a cup in silence while Jim pulled out a bottle of Jack Daniels from a cabinet and topped off his mug. Without a word, he slid the bottle toward me. I added a splash to my coffee. Honestly, I needed something to take the edge off. "Can I see the report?" Jim asked, eyes fixed on me. "I can show you the written summary," I replied, staring down at the table. "But I won't show you the pictures. Or the videos." Jim cursed under his breath. I looked up, met his eyes, and said, "Please, Jim. I'm asking you, man to man, do not ask to see the photos. No father should ever have to see his daughter like that." His face fell, and right there in front of us, he seemed to shrink like the truth had finally knocked the wind out of him. Then Willow spoke up, her voice cracking. "Do you think this marriage can still be saved?" I took a breath, steadying myself. "I spoke with a lawyer this morning. He's drafting the papers. They'll be ready by next week. Laura will be contacted by phone, and she can either pick them up or have them served officially." "You're really giving up?" Willow snapped, frustration turning to anger. "After all these years?" "I'm not the one who gave up, Willow," I said, as calmly as I could. "Laura made the choice when she started sneaking around behind my back." "But it was just one mistake," she argued. I closed my eyes and took 3 slow breaths before answering. Regret hit me for adding bourbon to my coffee, but it was too late now. "It wasn't just one time," I said quietly. "Only Laura and that man know the full count, but it's been going on for months." A heavy silence fell over the room. Then I looked at them both. "This isn't your first marriage, just like it isn't mine. We've all been through heartbreak. But what makes this worse is that we had 25 years behind us. That should mean something." Jim leaned forward. "But you've come so far. Doesn't that count?" "Love, trust, and respect," I said slowly. "You've told me those 3 words more times than I can count, Jim. And right now? I don't trust Laura. And she sure as hell doesn't respect me." Willow wiped her eyes and asked, "Will you at least be fair with her in the divorce?" "I'm going to follow the law," I said. "I won't drag her through the mud, but I'm not going to make it easy either. I'm going to protect myself and our girls." "What about them?" Jim asked. "I spoke to Emma and Brooke yesterday," I said. "Told them everything. They're angry. Hurt. But I think, in time, they'll come to terms with it." Willow hesitated. "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I still want to be part of your life." "So does Jim." I gave her a small nod. "You're always welcome to ask questions. I'm divorcing Laura. Not the 2 of you." Tears started streaming down her cheeks. "Will you talk to her?" "I will," I said. "But not today. Maybe not tomorrow either. I need time to breathe." Later that afternoon, I found myself sitting across from Holly Carson at a Dunkin' Donuts. She and Laura had been close friends for years, but I had always kept a cautious distance. Holly and her husband Derek had an open marriage, and while they weren't exactly recruiting people, they never made a secret of how they lived either. Their stories about swinger parties and casual hookups always rubbed me the wrong way. Still, I trusted Laura. Or at least I used to. Holly sat down across from me and wasted no time. "I can't believe how you're treating Laura," she said, practically scolding me. "Yes, she screwed up. But she's sorry. You need to let this go. Move on. Don't do anything stupid." "I'm not going to do anything reckless," I said firmly. "But I am filing for a divorce." She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You're really doing this?" "I am. The papers get filed Wednesday." "That's what you do when your spouse betrays you." She looked like she was about to argue, but I cut her off. "You've known me almost as long as Laura has. You've known about your own open marriage this whole time. But ask yourself, have I ever shown you any sign that I'd be okay with cheating?" Holly blinked, stunned. "This is a nightmare," she whispered. "It's a nightmare for Laura. For me. For our kids. Hell, Holly, it's about to be your nightmare too." She looked confused. "What are you talking about?" I leaned forward. "I hired a private investigator. Been digging into Laura's behavior for over a month." Holly straightened up in her seat. "So what?" "He caught her," I said. "The report includes all her text messages. Every conversation. For the past 6 months." I watched the color drain from her face. "And here's the kicker," I said, lowering my voice. "I know Ryan, the guy Laura's been seeing, was part of your swinger circle before either of you got married. Laura told me you once said he was well endowed, remember?" Holly's face turned beet red. She opened her mouth to respond but couldn't find the words. And that's when I knew, for all her confidence and judgment, she wasn't ready for what was coming next. "When you found out Ryan and Laura were working together," I said flatly, "you didn't warn her, Holly, you encouraged it. You told her to go for it. You even got updates on their little dates, didn't you?" "I know more than you think." She opened her mouth, but I wasn't in the mood to hear her side. "Every choice has consequences," I said, holding her gaze. "Laura's choice? It ends our marriage. As for you and Derek? Your fallout won't be as severe, but I promise your lives won't stay untouched." Holly leaned in, her tone turning hostile. "And how exactly are you planning to mess with our lives?" I smiled. "I'm glad you asked." I pulled out a folded piece of paper from my back pocket, flattened it on the table, and said, "This is an email I've drafted. It's going out soon to folks you and Derek know real well." The subject line read, "How Holly and Derek Carson Destroyed My Marriage." Then I started reading aloud. "My name is Dan Walker. I've been married to Laura for nearly 25 years. Until recently, I believed we had a strong marriage. That illusion was shattered when I discovered that, due to the direct influence of Holly and Derek Carson's open marriage lifestyle, my wife engaged in a long-term affair. Because of that affair, I am filing for divorce. This email is not written out of spite. It is a warning to others: be careful who you let into your circle. My wife's affair involved a swinging friend of Derek and Holly. And not only did Holly encourage it, she promised Laura it would be unforgettable. She was right. Laura will never forget it. Neither will our daughters. If you are connected to the Carsons, whether professionally, socially, or within your church, understand they do not respect marriage. I wish I had realized that before inviting them into my life. Sincerely, Dan Walker." "You send that out and we'll sue you," Holly hissed. I chuckled. "Already ran it by my lawyer. Everything in it is factual. Backed up by text messages and the investigator's report." She glared at me. "Who are you sending it to?" I shrugged. "Everyone in your school district: teachers, principals, superintendents. 38 folks at Derek's company. I know there are more than 300 employees there, but this'll circulate. Your country club, your church groups, parenting forums you're in. All of it." Holly's jaw dropped. She sat there stunned, completely silent. I slid a printed copy across the table. You can show it to Derek. Let him know what's coming. I stood up and added, have a nice life, Holly. You've earned it. One name in the investigator's file stuck with me, Naomi Simons, Ryan's wife. She had no idea, and I couldn't let her stay in the dark. Turns out, every Saturday, Naomi took her kids to park. It was part of her weekly routine, hanging out with the same group of moms while the kids played. When I got to the park, I spotted her almost right away, chatting with a small group near the swings. I walked up slowly. Naomi, I said, giving a gentle nod. She turned, surprised. Dan? I haven't seen you since the company Dantmas party. What brings you here? Just wanted to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Not really a coincidence that I ran into you. Her smile faded. Oh, okay. Want to talk over there? She gestured to a quiet spot beneath a big oak tree. Before she could move, one of the moms, a heavy-set blonde, looked up and asked, everything all right? Naomi didn't answer right away. She just stared at me, her face slowly draining of color as realization crept in. Another woman, taller, red-haired, and clearly protective, stood up and crossed her arms. This is my cousin, Tara, Naomi said. Tara, this is Dan Walker. His wife works with Ryan. Tara wasn't subtle. Her eyes darted between Naomi and me, full of suspicion. I think we should talk over at the picnic table, I said quietly. We'll be close by. Naomi looked down at the grass, tears starting to fall. She didn't say anything, just nodded. Tara moved in to hug her, and both women cried for a moment. When they pulled apart, Tara saw the look on my face and softened. I wasn't there to start trouble, I was just another person wrecked by the same betrayal. Can you take the kids home with you? Naomi asked Tara. Tara gave her a sad smile. Of course. They can stay with me for the weekend if they need to. Naomi and I sat down at the picnic table under the tree. I let her breathe for a moment, then asked, how long have you known? She sighed. Honestly? I had a feeling for about a month. But this isn't the first time. She looked away, wiping her eyes. Ryan and I married a little later in life than most. We had kids pretty quick. After the second was born, he got a vasectomy, and within 6 months, I found out about his first affair. Then came the second, she added, almost in a whisper. About a year later. I sat quietly, letting her talk. This is the third time, she said, voice cracking. And I know I should have left after the first. But I stayed. Why? I asked gently. Why'd you stay after the second time? She didn't hesitate. The kids. Only the kids. I grew up with divorced parents, mom was bitter, dad was distant. I only saw him once a week. I didn't want that for my own children. I nodded, understanding all too well. I'm wrestling with the same decision now, I admitted. Laura and I have been married almost 25 years. And I know it's over. I know divorce is the right call. But I keep second-guessing myself. Naomi gave a sad nod. It's the hardest thing in the world, giving up on someone you built a life with. But sometimes, staying hurts worse than walking away. I still don't know for sure if divorce is the only path forward, I told Naomi, but that's where it feels like we're heading. She nodded slowly. If it comes to that, at least I've got people around me who'll help me through it. That's what I expected her to say. Naomi's always been strong, grounded. I gave her a quiet nod. Can I ask you something more personal? I said. Why do you think Ryan keeps cheating? Her face didn't even flinch. He likes the thrill of breaking down good girls, she said. That's what he gets off on. I was naive when we got married, didn't know much about intimacy. He taught me everything. Set the rules. Gave me rewards when I followed them. She shook her head. I liked being his little secret fantasy, but only when I thought it was just between us. In a loving, faithful marriage. Not something he shared with every other woman he could lure in. "You want proof?" I asked, reaching into my bag. I handed her a thick envelope. This came from my investigator. Most of it's messages between Laura and Ryan. I'd suggest giving it straight to your attorney. Don't read it. There's nothing in there but pain. Naomi held the envelope like it was a live wire. What first made you suspicious of Laura? I let out a dry laugh. Turns out Ryan has a formula. And Laura, she started following it. She was picking up tricks and trying them out on me, like some loyal trainee. That's when I knew something wasn't right. We sat in silence for a few seconds. "I'm gonna stay at Terrace for the weekend," she said finally. "But I need to go home and pack a few things first. I know it's a big ask, but could you drive me?" "Of course," I said. "And don't worry about your husband, I can handle that clown." A little while later, after she arranged everything with Tara, we got in my car and made the quiet ride to her place. As we turned onto her street, she pointed out an SUV parked down the block. "Stop here," she said. I did as told. She stepped out and waved to someone in the SUV, then turned to me. "My house is 5 down on the left, the white Colonial." I pulled into her driveway. The SUV followed and parked right behind us. Ryan was outside, mowing the lawn like it was any other Saturday. He looked up and waved when he saw Naomi get out of my car. But things moved fast. 2 women jumped out of the SUV, flanked Naomi, and walked her toward the house. A big guy got out too, trailing just behind them. He took up post at the front door once the women and Naomi went inside. I was still climbing out of my car when another man, older, taller, walked toward me and extended a hand. "Name's Dennis Hayes," he said. "Naomi's my daughter." I shook his hand. "Dan Walker." Just then, Ryan noticed me for the first time and walked up with a strange look on his face. "What's Naomi doing with you?" he asked, glancing back at the SUV. I crossed my arms, leaning against the hood. "Ran into her at the park earlier. Figured she deserved to know what my investigator found." Before Ryan could say another word, Dennis stepped forward, face hard. "You absolute scumbag," he growled. "You just lost the only decent thing in your life. This is all lies." Ryan shouted, pushing past Dennis and charging toward the front door. "Stay out of my way." "Hank!" Dennis barked. The big guy by the door didn't move until Ryan tried to muscle past. Then, like a bouncer flipping a drunk at closing time, Hank rose up, gave Ryan a hard shove, and sent him sprawling onto the front lawn. Dennis looked at me with a raised eyebrow. I shrugged. "Looked like he slipped." "Sure did," Dennis replied, deadpan. Ryan scrambled to his feet, red-faced and furious. "This is all your wife's fault," he screamed at me. "She threw herself at me. Everyone knows she's community property." I let out a bitter chuckle. "I won't argue with you there, Ryan. Laura's not my problem anymore." Dennis put a hand on my shoulder, steady, grounding. "You and Ryan, you both knew the game. You both played it. Let's see who wins." Ryan spat. "I don't want anything to do with her." "Well, that makes 2 of you," I said. "She's already got enough wreckage to clean up without adding you to it." I shook Dennis's hand one more time. "Take care of Naomi," I said. "She's stronger than she knows. She deserves better than the mess she's been stuck in." 2 weeks passed. Laura had been served. Her lawyer and mine were exchanging paperwork. My life had slipped into a foggy routine of work, workouts, and silence. One afternoon, while picking at lunch, I checked my voicemail. One message stood out. "Hey Dan," Willow's voice said, warm but worn. "Just wanted to remind you about that promise you said you'd talk to Laura. It'd mean a lot if you'd give her a call. Thanks, sweetheart. Love you." I sighed and stared at my phone for a long time before dialing the number to the house. I knew Laura would be at work. After the beep, I left a message. "Hey, Laura. It's Dan. I'm staying out at Neela's family lake house. If you're up for it, come by Saturday around noon. I'll make some sandwiches. We can talk. I'll be out back by the picnic table. Saturday came. Laura showed up right on time. Thanks for coming, I said, motioning to the seat across from me. She sat down, glancing around. Even without makeup or that usual glow she used to carry, she still looked, well, like the woman I used to know. This is a beautiful place, she said softly. Yeah, I nodded. I was thinking about moving into a downtown condo at first, but lately, I've been looking at lake houses. The words came out before I thought about them. Her face fell. She looked like I had just kicked her in the chest. Laura, I started, trying to walk it back, but she held up her hand. No need to apologize, she said, blinking back tears. I'm just being overly sensitive. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, watching the wind ripple across the lake, wondering how we got to this place. Laura turned her head and stared off at the lake. I'm scared, she whispered. The words just hung there between us like smoke. I've been afraid plenty of times before: work stress, raising the girls, all those unknowns, she said, her voice low. But I always had you by my side. We were a team. That made everything feel manageable. She gave a small, nostalgic smile. I nodded. Yeah. We were good at that. For a little while, we just sat quietly, eating lunch. I refilled her wineglass, topped off my beer, and for a few brief minutes, it felt like the past wasn't so far away. Then she took a breath and said, I've started seeing a therapist. His name's Dr. Klein. I guess shrink is a little unfair, he's been a big help. Trying to help me figure out how to move forward, by myself. I nodded again. That's good, Laura. I hope he helps you get what you need to heal. She hesitated for a second, then spoke the words I'd been expecting. I've told myself not to ask, but I have to. Is there any chance you could ever forgive me? Could we ever try again? Her voice was shaking. Full of hope and heartbreak. I set down my beer, took a long breath, and finally said, those are two separate questions. Forgiveness and reconciliation aren't the same thing. She didn't say anything, just watched me carefully. I've been thinking about forgiveness since the moment we agreed to meet today, I continued. And the truth is, I'm going to try. Not for your sake, Laura. For mine. For the girls. For whatever peace is still possible between us. I finished my beer, then added, we'll always be in each other's lives, whether we like it or not. I don't want to carry this bitterness forever. But the marriage? That's over. The divorce will go through. We won't be trying again. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she gave a small nod. She understood even if she didn't want to. Can I call you? If I ever just need someone to talk to, she asked softly. Everything in me wanted to snap, to tell her no. But I kept calm. Reached into the cooler for another beer and gave myself a moment to think. How about this? I said. Until the divorce is final, let's keep everything through the lawyers. After that, if you really need to talk, I'll pick up. Just don't abuse it. She nodded again, more tears falling, and we left it at that. 7 months later, the divorce was finalized. That first night in my new lake house, I sat out back watching the sun go down. I had two choices in front of me: crack open a couple high-alcohol craft beers from the cooler, or dive straight into the bourbon bottle sitting on the table. Before I could choose, my phone buzzed. Laura. I picked up. Hey, Laura. I'm really low tonight, she said. Just needed someone to talk to. So we talked. 5 years later, things are better. A lot better, actually. One morning, I remember stepping out onto the back porch and realizing the sky looked bluer. The birds sounded louder. I felt lighter. Neela was right. Time and healing go hand in hand. She ended up relocating to our company's Houston headquarters. She's now the executive vice president of sales and marketing. Still single, but happy. After a few glasses of wine, she'll admit to indulging in the occasional one-night stand and say it with no shame. Emma graduated with honors and works as an engineer for a defense contractor out on the West Coast. She's dating a guy, nothing too serious yet, but they're talking about grad school together. She keeps in touch with both me and Laura. We talk every week. Brooke's still our little introvert, we call her the mole because she never leaves her books. After a stint at a pharmaceutical company, she got accepted to medical school. She's engaged to another med student, and they're both laser-focused on their careers. I check in with her weekly, though she rarely reaches out first. My parents are still kicking. They spend most of the winter down in Orlando, Florida, but they're holding strong. Mom and Laura still have lunch once a month. Dad usually passes. Jim and Willow, Laura's folks, are doing okay too. They've got the usual aging aches, but nothing major. They rotate Sunday dinners with my parents, keeping that old rhythm alive. Honestly, I'm glad they're still close. As for Holly and Derek, they packed up and moved to the Midwest about a year after the divorce. Ryan followed not long after. Good riddance to the whole lot of them. Naomi's doing great. Her kids are thriving, and after taking her time, she eventually started dating again. She set some high standards and eventually met someone who lived up to them. They tied the knot last year, and judging by the way they look at each other, they're still in the honeymoon phase. Even Laura seems to be in a good place now. Her relationship with Brooke is still rocky, but her friendships and family ties have mostly mended. She's been seeing a guy for about 6 months. When we last spoke, she said he might be the one. And honestly, I hope she's right. As for me, life's steady. After Mila moved, I took over her role as division president. The work keeps me busy but not overwhelmed. The lake house brings me peace. About 2 years after the divorce, I ran into Tara again, Naomi's fiery redhead cousin. It was at a graduation party for a mutual friend's daughter. We shared a few laughs. Later that evening, after the crowd thinned out, she pulled me aside. And from that day on, well, things got interesting. Now, Tara stops by my office during lunch every now and then. One afternoon, she came in, locked the door, and waited for me to finish a call. I joined her on the couch. Look, I'm in my early 50s. I'm not the same man I was at 30. My body doesn't move as fast, and the days of wild passion are mostly behind me. But Tara? She doesn't seem to mind. And maybe that's exactly what I needed all along. Peace. Connection. A little forgiveness. And someone who sees me not for who I used to be, but for the man I am now.